I must have stared at her too long. There was a quiet chuckle from Edward C. Why are you so surprised, Josh? Haven't you ever seen a beautiful clown before? Joey was not so dazzled as I was. He had light words for Emily. I didn't know ladies were ever clowns, he said, smiling. I wouldn't think they'd like to make themselves ugly. They don't, Joey, Emily answered, but they like to eat occasionally and to see that their children eat. So when they get a chance to make some money at the business of clowning, they forget that they'd rather look pretty. She buttered a piece of toast and bit into it hungrily. You must get acquainted with my boys, she said again, addressing Joey. The oldest is about your age. The other two are 8 and 5. Sometimes they forget that I'm their mother. When they see me on the grounds, they call me Bongo, just as the other kids do. Should I call you Bongo? Joey asked. It would be better. You see, no one outside the gates knows that I'm a woman. Carnival and circus crowds think of all clowns as men. They might not like a clown named Emily. Her voice was beautiful, and I loved beautiful voices in women. It had the quality of a little bell, I thought, and I longed to get at the piano to see if I could find the notes that would let me express Emily's voice in music. I was afraid that I couldn't, but I wanted to try. Edward C. was speaking to Joey. Emily's the greatest attraction of the carnival, Joey. People bring their children back night after night because of Bongo. And the caterpillar, Emily interposed. And the merry-go-round. We three, I don't know which of us rates top billing. She turned to me again. You'll be playing and ballyhooing outside the girly show, Josh. Those ladies at the table off to the left are the dancers. It's a gyp show. You just as well know it. People pay a dime and expect to see either some pretty girls or some beautiful dancing, and they see women who are no longer pretty and dancing that is only third rate. It's a gyp. Pete will admit it, and a lot of people will complain to you about it, but the dancers have to eat too, you know. They're not very good, but then I'm not the funniest clown in the world either. There isn't a performance on the grounds that is really top-notch, but Pete keeps us and we limp along. At least we have a little food each day. A lot of people would envy us for that. I nodded. I know all about being hungry and grateful for a job, I said. She put her hand on mine, and her eyes were full of kindness. I know, Josh. Pete has told me what he learned about you from the truck driver. Pete wants very much to help you and Joey. He seems like a very kind gentleman, I said, but I wasn't thinking of Pete Harris as I spoke. I was looking at that oval of her face and the gentle concern in her eyes. There was a kindness and a sweetness about her that made me forget everything in the world except the fact that she was there beside me. The thought came to me suddenly and clearly. This is what it means to be in love. I love someone who is kind and beautiful. I love someone who is a clown. She was talking about Pete Harris when I became conscious of her words again. He is a good man, she was saying quietly. He has his weaknesses, but he's good. You can count on Pete if you play fair. She turned and smiled at the dwarf man. Isn't that so, Edward C.? He puckered his mouth until he was like a tiny rosette in the middle of his face. You and I know it is so, Emily. The boys will realize it too when they're better acquainted with him. Emily said nothing more. She picked up her fork and began to eat the food Edward C. passed to her. She did not look up until the dancers came by. One of them spoke to her. The others didn't look in her direction. A woman with bleached, harsh-looking hair looked at me and smiled. She said, Hi there, big fellow. Another woman gave the speaker a disgusted look. Don't tip the cradle, Florrie. Let Pete Harris and his clown take care of the kid. Emily's face didn't change expression. She said, You'll find all kinds of people here, Josh. You'll have to play by ear for a while. You'll have to be very careful. When she noticed that Edward C. and Joey and I had finished our meal, she asked us to wait until she'd finished eating. Pete wants me to trim your hair before you start on your job, she said. I'm kind of an expert at barbering. There are 3 redheads at home who have to be trimmed ever so often. I'm getting pretty good at the job. So we waited, and then when Edward C., striding beside me and Emily, walking hand in hand with Joey, we went into one of the tents where she draped a towel over my shoulders and worked on my hair with quick, sure snips of her scissors. She trimmed Joey, too, while she was at it, and then leaned back in a chair and regarded us with satisfaction. You both have well-shaped heads. That's very important for men. More important, in my mind, than height or width of shoulder. She put her hands up to her own short hair and pulled it vigorously as if she were trying to lessen the tightness of her scalp. You can go to Pete now. He'll tell you what you're to do today. I'm going to rest here a bit before I put on my makeup.